My wife is Albanian, and when I met her, I spoke no Albanian. She spoke a little English, and somehow we figured it out. So it just takes much more work.
Love is a different language. Yeah.
I think number 2 was back there.
Yes, I'd like to just sort of get a sense of how different people understand the command, you might say, to go to being reconciled first. Is this that you intend to be, or you're ready to be reconciled, or is it the fact of being reconciled that is being asked of us before we go to God?
I can tell you my opinion, and you're looking at me, but maybe there's somebody that's better qualified to answer.
I throw it out to the group.
Well, let's think about that. That's a great question. But
Okay, I was going to comment more on what Alex said, but this has been going through my mind. For me, in terms of, in this discussion, about forgiveness and across all situations that I can think of, the thing is that Christ died for all, and all are created in the image and likeness of God, Muslim, Jew, atheist, whatever. So, for me, that's the basis of forgiveness. And there is no requirement that they know Christ, or somehow. And the other thing is that since I've come to the Orthodox Church, my background is a social worker and a social work instructor, and I kind of got really disenchanted with my profession because of its emphasis on spirituality and forgiveness, and some of these things which I felt weren't appropriate because they were divorced from the context, which I really felt was necessary. But since that time, I'm seeing that, God's not going to limit himself to the Orthodox Church. And it's like it's out there, and thank God that's the way it is, I think. And so, I guess I don't have anything more much to say beyond that, but as their words are not sufficient, in Orthodoxy there is an organic nature. It does not depend upon our understanding. This is an interesting thing from being in Romania and in Russia, is that it's lived. And it shaped the culture even under communism. And it's evident that it's there. And people felt at a disadvantage when they were confronted with Protestantism, and they were asked, well, what about your sacraments, and what do you think about this, and how do you explain that? And they couldn't answer. And they would go through, a sense of inferiority where they were living the faith. And for example, they would say, well, we saw this cross in the sky and this fire, and we knew that something was going to happen, just kind of like the story. So anyway, that's just a few things in relation to forgiveness and God's greatness.
can we go father number 1 and father number 2?
Okay.
Father number 3?
Well, we get a lot of fathers here. That's good. I just want to say that one of the things that I've contemplated over the years, being Orthodox and also being concerned about other people and caring about other people, is a very simple issue, which is put myself in someone else's shoes. So, for instance, if I were to have been mugged, okay, look, turn to you guys. If you get mugged, so you don't have your wallet, your keys are gone, your wallet's gone, you're beaten. If you wear glasses, they're destroyed, okay, right? And along comes somebody to come and help you. Do you want to hear a theological discourse on what nous means, or what the Trinity is all about, or what? Do you really want to hear that? What you want is someone to be kind and show you love and compassion, right? I mean, you want someone that's trustworthy, that's going to help you up. You're not going to care about all this other theological stuff, really. It doesn't even matter whether you are Christian or not. I mean, if you are in that position, if you're a Buddhist...
Even if the guy is Samaritan?
Right, exactly. Oh, it sounds familiar, doesn't it? It sounds familiar, right? So the issue comes up is sort of like, well, which do you want? Do you really want to know the absolute theological truth and the actual very fine words to say at the right time? Or do you want to learn how to show God's love no matter where you are? And sometimes that's sort of the issue.
You probably also don't want to hear, I can help you out, but are you willing to forgive the guy who knocked you down?
Right. No, you just want the compassion. Right. You want the compassion. You want to know that there's something out there that really cares and really is willing to care and love. That first, before all else. And Paul talks about that. That you can have all these other things, and if you don't have love, you have nothing. If you can't have charity, you have nothing. I think that's a really powerful point about whether you apply it to national, international, war, or politics, or to family life, or to being in the hospital, or anywhere. That you want to bring this to this place of always being an agent of God's love. That's as Christians what we're called to be, agents of God's love.
And isn't it possible that the behavior of Christ, the example, can be alive? I know Timothy Ware says this in one of his books. It can be alive in a Muslim, a Jew, an atheist. The behavior, the actualization of the teachings, not as words but in being, are, if everyone is in God's image, that's a real possibility that's anywhere.
And if somebody at the very last moment of their life, last breath of their life, can become fully Christian, even more fully Christian than any of us here, in the very last moment of their life, let's say someone like Constantine, who waited till his deathbed to be baptized, right? And if God can accept that person at that last very moment, the thief on the cross, then how do we know who he is not accepting? We have no idea who he's not accepting. So our attitude of love has to be present for all people, as though they're fully accepted by God, even though we don't see it.
That's where non-judgmental.
That's what, right.
Non-judgment.
Hopefully we can get there. I mean, I struggle with this, don't get me wrong. Just because...
I think we all do.
Oh, please, go ahead, steal from somewhere.
August and say, what I've decided what I want to be when I grow up is a healing balm for a suffering world.
Thank you. Yes, I love that phrase. I love
promised
that.
that we would quit on time. It's 5:15, but I also promised the good father to
Okay.
speak next.
Sorry,
As profound and concise as you've ever been.
Oh!
Kind of answering his question, but also, I think that to sum up in the liturgy, right before the creed, there's this, the deacon of the priest who goes to the congregation, and he says, love one another. Now, I use the word heart. In one translation, use mind, but it's a form of nous. Love one another, so with one heart you may confess, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one in essence, undivided. Now, she spoke about the image and likeness of God. The image and likeness of God for us is Trinity. And of course, if we read St. John's Gospel, chapters 18 to 17, in 17, Christ prays that they all may be one as you found and I am one. So this all kind of fits in that this is our central theme of faith, and to love one another, we must forgive one another. And I think that's a very important passage in the liturgy. It's kind of a turning point, because then we go into the creed and we lay the gifts, and the gifts are on the altar. So
I'll try to make this very concise. I think in a very practical setting, reconciliation is to be where the other person is at. Where the other person is at, you are ready to be there. So I mentioned if the person makes a tiny gesture, you'll accept it. You might go and ask. They might reject you, but you're ready to go and ask to be reconciled. But they might reject you, so therefore you pray for them. At the very least, you would pray for them. But you also would be where the person is at. I can go more.
Do you want to say something? Then we'll finish.
I think I'm getting tired, but it was good to hear that God didn't create Adam and Eve perfect. So I'm not perfect, and I've hurt, so I need to forgive.
I think we all practice forgiveness imperfectly too, like we do everything else, and so it's something to work at. Okay, do we have a break until when, and then the middle?
Yeah, dinner's not until 6, and I would just urge you all, even though all these conversations are terrifically fascinating, that you might think about taking some very quiet contemplative time, either to go upstairs to the oratory, to the chapel that they have, outside, to your room, and just recharge those batteries. And we'll have one more substantive session today after dinner. Did every